It is incredibly powerful for long-term mental health. And the thing about it, it feels so good that you just want to keep doing it. And it goes from being a practice to becoming a habit to then a way of life. So I don't think about practicing gratitude. I live a life of gratitude. It becomes a way of life.
Do you want to be better with money but dread the math? I get it. That's why this show is not focused on math, the markets, meme stocks, or even economic predictions. It is focused on how money fits into your daily life, from having healthy money conversations to caring for an aging parent. I'm Karen Coyne, certified financial planner professional and your host of Money Without Math. Join us for conversations that are practical, sometimes philosophical, and always fresh. Learn more about me at raymondjames.com/clarity, and be sure to subscribe. Today, we're diving into how gratitude can actually rewire our sense of identity, shifting the narratives that shape our choices, our habits, even our well-being. Joining us is Dr. Peggy DeLong, the Gratitude Psychologist, to explore how feeling enough can quietly transform the way we live, work, and even approach our finances. And of course, we'll also learn some ways that we can incorporate gratitude practices right away. Dr. Peggy DeLong is a psychologist known for transforming grief and adversity into growth through practical, research-based gratitude tools. She's also a speaker, workshop leader, and author of Feeling Good, 35 Proven Ways to Happiness. Welcome, Peggy.
Thank you so much for having me, Karen.
So I have to ask, have you always been such a grateful human being?
Absolutely not. I always say that I was quite an ungrateful teen. I was an ungrateful young adult. I grew up in an area with tremendous privilege and was too busy comparing myself to everybody else who I perceived as having more, doing more. So I did not appreciate what I had. And it took tragedy in my life to discover the power of gratitude for myself.
Ugh. And I can relate to this 100% because, first of all, how many grateful teenagers are there on the planet? I mean, it has to be in the single digits. I don't know. But so we need to give ourselves a little bit of grace, right, for the ungrateful beings that we were. So how old were you when you had this tragedy in your life, Peggy?
I was 26 years old and life was going really well at that time. I was engaged to a wonderful man. I was applying to graduate schools. I was beginning to fulfill my lifelong dream of becoming a psychologist. All of the graduate schools that I applied to, I had interviews for. And during that week, one day, my fiance woke up with a lump on the side of his neck. And I just knew it was bad. I had a premonition that our lives were about to change. And unfortunately, he was diagnosed with a very aggressive form of cancer and told that without treatment, he was going to die in 2 weeks. And with treatment, he only had a 10 to 15% chance of survival. And thankfully, he did achieve remission with the first round of chemotherapy. And we had a wonderful summer. We toured the mansions of Newport, Rhode Island. We hiked all over the Green Mountains of Vermont. We went to every concert you can imagine. And then suddenly he took a turn for the worst. And when he entered the emergency room and they discovered that the cancer came back, they said that there was nothing left that they could do for him and that he was going to die. And it was in those last 42 days of his life that I discovered the power of gratitude for myself. When my whole world was turned upside down, everything was so incredibly unpredictable. Some days he could speak my name, some days he couldn't. Some days he could open his eyes and look at me, some days he couldn't. And I didn't know what day he was going to die. They told me he was going to die. I just didn't know which day that was going to be. Every day was so incredibly unpredictable. And I found comfort in the one thing that was predictable that I could rely on during that time, and that was a simple cup of hazelnut coffee, that I was able to walk down the 7 flights of stairs, get some exercise, and go to the coffee shop and get myself a cup of hazelnut coffee, bring it up and sit by him. And there was so much goodness wrapped up in that simple cup The aroma permeated his hospital room. It's made it seem less sterile. I would wrap my hands around the styrofoam and I could feel the warmth coming through the styrofoam. And it reminded me of being home because that's when I started drinking hazelnut coffee with my mother my senior year in high school. And there was so much gratitude and goodness wrapped up in that cup that it brought me comfort. My 26-year-old self had no idea that what I was doing was practicing gratitude. I just knew that it helped me get through every single day. And then as I became a psychologist and started studying the brain and cognitive behavioral psychology, I really became curious. Well, what is it about gratitude that's so powerful? How did that simple cup get me through the worst days of my life? And it really has informed how I live my life and what I do, professionally in my private practice.
Oh, that's incredible. And what a parting gift to you from what was your fiance's name?
Scott.
Scott. That's such an incredible story, Peggy. Thank you for sharing that.
Sure. Well, it's interesting that his favorite band was the Grateful Dead, and my signature presentation is called The Grateful Day. It sounds very similar. When I say it out loud, people think I'm gonna say The Grateful Dead, but it's actually called The Grateful Day.
I love it. Absolutely love it. And when you say hazelnut coffee, it's funny. It reminds me too of when I first started drinking coffee in high school. And it was, remember those international coffees that were powdered? I just thought they were the height of sophistication because they had all the different, they had like the Vienna flag, the Austrian, one was like an Austrian, one was a French, had a French flag on it. And it was like this international theme. And so, of course, as a 16, 17-year-old, I just thought it was so sophisticated.
Oh,
But
yeah, I
something,
can picture it now. I
right.
know exactly what you're talking
Yes,
about.
I don't think they make them anymore. But I just had a flashback when when you were talking about hazelnut coffee. The other thing that stood out to me, I don't want to get too off track, but you mentioned several aspects of what you went through in the gratitude process with the coffee, and that was it hit different sensory uh, aspects. The aroma, the smell, the warmth of the cup, the taste, all of those things. Is there a connection also there with the different sensory aspects?
Yes, there are many different ways to practice gratitude, and one of them is to make a list, and that's more of a cognitive exercise to go through and maybe make a list of 10 things that you're grateful for. But I really prefer picking one or two things and then going really deep with those one or two things and really connecting to the why of why you're grateful for that, and that it enhances the emotional experience.
Uh-huh. That makes sense. And what about in your research? Again, for a 30-minute episode, I know we don't have time for a full dissertation, but what have you uncovered in your work with gratitude and research findings?
Well, one is just what I mentioned, that when we do go deep and we think about the details, it enhances the emotional experience, particularly when using gratitude journals. The other aspect of using a gratitude journal is to think about something different. So if you write about your best friend, then challenge yourself for another 30 days not to write about your best friend. Think about all of the other wonderful things you have going on in your life. And there's some research by Sean Aker that demonstrates that when we do those two things, it makes a gratitude practice much more powerful.
Okay. Can you speak to how these gratitude practices can actually reshape or shape how we see ourselves? Maybe that person who, oh, I don't want to go too far into like victim, but right, feeling like I'm so unlucky, nothing ever works out for me. My dog died, I lost my job, whatever it is. All these terrible, terrible things happen to me versus the person that's able to come out of a very challenging situation like yours, face adversity and have a completely different outlook on life.
Well, gratitude changes the way we see our lives in the world. Now, our lives don't change and the world doesn't change, but it changes the way we perceive them, and that makes all the difference in the world. And we can see now through functional MRIs that brain structure changes when we practice gratitude. That is how low-level pessimists are able to become low-level optimists. And because that's the way they see the world changes, and we become more optimistic, more hopeful, simply through daily gratitude practices. It changes the brain structure and forms new neural pathways to become more positive thinkers.
And is it long lasting or do we have to, is it like any other muscle that can atrophy?
It is long lasting. Really incredible, the research behind this. One study looked at college students who wrote gratitude letters. And even though they only wrote 3 gratitude letters over a period of 3 weeks, they measured their self reported happiness at the 4 week mark and they reported significant improved mood. And then they measured their self reported happiness again at the 12 week mark and they maintained that elevated mood even when they hadn't written another gratitude letter. So it is incredibly powerful for long term mental health. And the thing about it, it feels so good that you just want to keep doing it. And it goes from being a practice to becoming a habit to then a way of life. So I don't think about practicing gratitude. I live a life of gratitude. It becomes a way of life.
Mm. Isn't it funny? Do you think about before and after, like how you were before gratitude in those early days?
Absolutely, and I feel, bad for what I put my parents through, and if only, I truly believe that everything, happens in the time that it's meant to unfold, but that is one regret that I wish that I had discovered the power for myself and those around me a little bit earlier.
Yes, same. I was a very bratty teenager and put my mother through I mean, just really, oh gosh, awful, awful, awful. But, as we're having this conversation today, I think if anyone is listening and dealing with bratty teenage children, just know that there is hope at the end of the tunnel because your bratty child can one day become a very deeply grateful human being.
Well, and speaking of that, through the power of modeling, we can absolutely model gratitude and appreciation for our children. And I love sunsets. I will pull over on the side of the road safely and gaze at a sunset, point it out the window, wherever I am. And I really didn't think my kids picked up on that much until one day I was doing the dishes out my kitchen window, and the sunset is on the opposite end of the house. And my 15-year-old son stopped me and said, "Mom, you've got to stop doing the dishes and take a look at this sunset." So he pulled me away from this chore and opened up our front door. And it was one of the most gorgeous sunsets I've ever seen. And then he went off to college. And one of the, difficult parts of parenthood is when your children leave the home and you don't have daily contact anymore. And he wasn't the one to pick up the phone and call, but he would send me texts of sunsets. So it was one way that I know that my out loud appreciation for sunsets had an impact on him, and then it became a way that we were connected.
Oh, that's fantastic. I love that. I love that. Was just talking about, how we stay connected to our kids this weekend. I'd mentioned to you earlier that, going skiing, cross country skiing, and seeing all these families and with some of their very, very young children, and just thinking, oh my gosh, this is something that they'll be able to do, together for the rest of their lives. And so I'm always curious in these ways that people stay connected with their children. And certainly gratitude is something you can do even if you don't ski.
Absolutely.
Something I wanted to talk to you about today is that gratitude also has a way of helping people maybe measure success in ways that are non-financial. And this is something that I see a lot, having worked with folks for many years, of all different levels of wealth and age, demographics, you name it. But a common denominator that I see in working with these clients is generally most of them do have a very positive and grateful a way of moving about the world. And like you said, whether or not it's a practice that becomes a habit, I think it's more just deeply ingrained with who they are. I mean, even if they weren't maybe that way in the beginning. But can you speak to how gratitude can help us maybe approach success or define success differently?
Yes, once again, it goes back to perspective. When you are in a mindset of lack, it's hard to feel good about yourself and do any task that's related to success. And it really is changing from going from a scarcity mindset to an abundant mindset. When you are grateful, even for the things that we take for granted, it changes your mood and it makes you more likely to do the things that will lead you toward the success that you are looking for. And it also reduces comparison. So comparison is so often where can bring down our mood, diminish our achievements and our perception of our own successes. And gratitude helps to minimize that comparison so that we are more just focused on our own lives, what we've got going on in our own lives, and not necessarily focusing on the finances and looking at our relationships, our past achievements, anything that makes us feel good about ourselves rather than it being tied to a number.
Right, or something outward, something that we can't control.
Absolutely. Yes. So gratitude also helps us to be more present in our lives. And that truly is where happiness is in the present moment, not looking back upon our past, which sometimes can have regret and sadness, or looking too much toward the future, which is often associated, especially those what if thoughts, those worry what if thoughts can lead to anxiety. So when we think about what we are grateful for today, it helps us to be more present in our lives and actually can slow down the perception of time
Mhm.
where we feel we have more going on in our lives today rather than being so future oriented of things that are completely out of our control.
It's fascinating to me because, 25 plus years ago when I started out as a financial advisor, it would have been very woo woo to talk about, let's talk about your portfolio and also let's check in on your gratitude, on a scale of 0 to 10. Where's your gratitude meter today? But today I feel like we can do this. And it's not, like Karen is crazy. Karen is woo woo. She is really, why is she talking to us about gratitude as part of our portfolio review? But the reality is that it is so important, not just with how we approach our finances, but our well being overall. I mean, that's what I just heard from what you were saying.
Right. And when you look at it this way, uh, if you're not grateful for what you have, how can you expect to have more of that? So whether it's running water, or food in the refrigerator or your bank account. It starts with being grateful for what you have, and that mindset just invites more in. And what I love about it, when you practice it regularly, you are content with whatever you have going on because you know that it's more of a feeling that comes from within rather than anything external.
Hmm. Yes, and that is I think there's so much more either research to be done or maybe practices to cross over the world that you live and work in and the world that I live and work in because so often you see folks that get caught up in, the treadmill, the never-ending moving goalpost. It's never enough. It's never enough. And a big part of I think the antidote to that is gratitude. And
Yes.
interestingly, I don't know if you call it like your tagline or your motto, but I noticed, in your website and some of your material that you say prioritize, plan, practice, and prosper. And I thought, oh, yes, that's it. I mean, that is the intersection, even though I don't think you're talking about prospering only from a financial standpoint.
Right, I call that the 4 Ps, and it really can apply to anything that we are working on, whether I typically talk about it in the context of mental health, but it can be applied for any goal, that when we prioritize that goal and then we plan activities toward that goal, practice them often, and then we will prosper even during difficult times.
Yes. And going back to your earliest comments today, you grew up in a world where you were, very comfortable, had no reason to not be grateful, and yet it was in your darkest days that you really found gratitude. And I think that's probably a separate podcast episode, but I have found that also to be true. Is that it's been in the most difficult days of my life that I've had the most profound gratitude, and really that just kicked me and said, there's a shift to be had here. You have very much to be thankful for, and hopefully that spoiled brat, teenage brat, is is far, far, far in the rearview mirror. But yes, gratitude doesn't come from our surroundings, our conditions is what I'm getting at. We're not gratitude because good things are happening.
Yes. And I always say, don't save gratitude for your good days. Gratitude is most powerful on your worst days. But when we're going through the difficult times, it can be so hard to think about what you're grateful for, and sometimes even make you angry to even consider. And that's when I suggest, like, really considering the simplest of things: running water, food in the refrigerator, a comfortable bed to sleep on, because our brain cannot tell the difference between those things and what our human brain labels as huge things. Our brain does not care. The same thing happens. We get a dose of serotonin and dopamine, whether it's something that we label as small or huge. And when we intentionally keep it small, that's available to us all the time.
And that is the perfect segue because I know that you have some micro practices that you recommend for folks, especially ones that maybe feel like they're too busy or too overwhelmed or journaling just isn't their thing. And I'm sure that I hope that folks listening today, are thinking, oh my gosh, I definitely need to incorporate some more gratitude in my life. And if so, you tell us about some of these ways that we can incorporate some of these practices.
Sure, I will go over a couple that are within what I call the grateful day. And the first one is simply to say out loud when you wake up in the morning, just say these two words: thank you. And you don't even need to be thinking about what you're grateful for in that moment. Your brain might be a little bit fuzzy. You're not thinking clearly, so let yourself off the hook. You don't need to think about what you're grateful for. It's through the power of language that all those words are associated with positivity. When we say thank you, it's when we have received something. So it's a wonderful way to prime our brains for positivity. Another reason this is so powerful is because for many people, if you're going through a difficult time, when you first wake up in the morning, it's when all those worry thoughts can come rushing in. Your to-do list, regrets from yesterday, just future-oriented worry, what-if thoughts. They can start to spiral out of control before you've even gotten out of bed, and you can start to have a bad day before your feet even hit the
Oh
floor. So
gosh,
one
it's true.
and what it is, so one way to counteract that is to shut down those negative thoughts by saying thank you out loud. And then the second part is to actually get out of bed. Don't stay in bed and let those negative thoughts fester. Get out of bed and start moving your body. And this exercise takes 2 seconds, and it can be just enough of a shift to have a better day.
You know, we had a conversation a couple weeks ago when we first connected, and it was crazy. I think within 24 hours of us having a conversation, I was talking to a client who's 87 years old, and she was talking about one of her hobbies that brings her a lot of joy, and she was saying, I try not to let my age dictate too much how I feel and how I live my life at 87. She said, every day I wake up and I say, thank you, God, and let's make it a great day. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have to tell Dr. Peggy. Like we just, we just were talking about this.
Well, it's interesting that she has that second seconds, let's make it a great day, because that's part of my second exercise. And that is to use a positive statement in the morning, such as "Let's make it a great day," or in the context of gratitude, "I'm gonna be more aware of my blessings as I go about my day." And this is an exercise that I usually recommend that people do before you leave your bedroom. Like, use the door frame as of your bedroom as a check, as a reminder. Have I set my intention yet? That's what I call the setting your intention. And in the context of gratitude, what you're doing is you're telling your brain what's important to you as you go about your day. So when you say that you're going to be more aware of your blessings and pay less attention to the things that annoy you, that's exactly what your brain will be doing for you. Due to the power of the reticular activating system, which works as a filter, we simply cannot pay attention to all of the stimuli that bombard us every day. Our reticular activating system filters them out for us. And the great thing is, we get to tell it what's important to us. So when you say, I'm going to have a great day, you are more likely to have a great day. When you say to your brain, I'm going to pay more attention to my blessings today, your brain will work in your favor to find those things, highlight them for you, connect them, more, even exaggerate them for you. So you feel them as opposed to just going by your day really quickly and not noticing.
Is that similar to the phenomenon where, like, if I buy a red Volkswagen, now I see red Volkswagens everywhere?
Exactly. Your reticular activating system. You've told your brain that red Volkswagens are important, and then you start to see them all over the place.
Okay. So step 1, we say the words out loud, "Thank you," when is as soon as our eyes open, as soon as we wake up in the morning, and then we get out of bed, move about our day before we or as we're crossing the threshold of our bedroom and we're really starting our day, we set our intention.
Yes. And that both of those exercises only take 2 seconds.
Right.
The other part of setting your intention, you're going to do while you already do something else every morning, whether you're brushing your teeth, putting your shoes on. I suggest attaching it to that activity. That's called habit stacking, so that you're more likely to do it when you attach it to something that you do every day. And because you're doing it at the same time, it does not take any more time. So you've only spent 2 seconds of your day for exercise 1 and 2.
Yes. Okay. Is there another exercise that you recommend to wrap up the day or throughout the day when, like I might set my intention and then I get to my desk and I'm putting out fires left and right and I've forgot all about my intention for the day. How do I course correct?
Yes. So exercise number 3 is to express appreciation for one person every day. And you can do this exactly when you get to your computer. The research shows that when people open up their computer and look at email, 80% of people hold their breath. Now, that is a stress inducing behavior, not a relaxing behavior. So you can counteract that by taking a few deep breaths and then intentionally send off an email of appreciation to one person. It doesn't need to be lengthy or fancy. Just, I'm thinking about you. I'm grateful for having you in my life. That's it. And send off that email of appreciation to counteract what researchers call email apnea. And if you have more time, you could write a gratitude letter. This is really a powerful way to improve your own mood, and another person gets to benefit by reading it as well. And the number one predictor of happiness and well being is our human relationships. So, writing gratitude letters or sending a text or an email is one way to do both things. You're practicing gratitude and you're connecting with another human being, which any time we spend fostering our relationships is time well spent.
Oh my goodness. Yes. Okay. So, when you catch yourself spiraling, emails have sent your brain into a frenzy, you're holding your breath, all the things. Give yourself a timeout, send a text or an email to someone and express your gratitude.
Yes. It really enhances relationships. It makes people feel less lonely, especially when people can consider the relationships that they have and feel the gratitude for that person as they are writing it.
Mm.
And the one wonderful thing, when you do have the time to write a gratitude letter, the researchers looked at why these are so powerful. And it was really two things going on. The obvious is the positivity. When we sit down to write a gratitude letter for someone, it's positive. We're thinking about positive things. But the other part is the absence of negativity. So much of our brain is negative thinking during the day. We that negativity bias, that just where our brains are hardwired to more weight on the negative. So when we sit down to write a gratitude letter, it just might be the only 10 or 15 minutes that not one single negative thought could creep in. There's just no room for
There's
it.
no
So,
room.
right. So it's a beautiful exercise. If you're having a down day, your mood is low, it's one of the easiest ways to lift your own mood by writing a gratitude letter.
Wonderful. Peggy, these are simple yet so profound. And I just know how profound they are because I see it. I see people practicing these things. I've seen how it's impacted my own life, and I know that you're doing so many great things to help people incorporate these practices in their life. So we'll be sure to share, uh, links to your website and to your socials, et cetera, so people can come along the journey and follow you for more because it's so easy to get off track. I mean, I think that's the biggest challenge is for many of us. We set our intention for the day and then we quickly go off the rails, especially yes, as soon as we open up that inbox. But you've covered so many great things today. This has just been so fantastic. And I'm so thankful that you joined and took the time to share these things and that I get to start my day thinking about being awash in gratitude. Is there anything we didn't get to today or any last closing thoughts that you wanted to share before we wrap?
Well, I would love to invite people if they would like to receive some support in implementing these 5 exercises that I call the Grateful Day. You can sign up on my website. It's just drpeggydelong.com/the Grateful Day. And once you sign up for that, each day you will receive 1 email with how to put that idea into action. And then you'll receive 5 and complete them all to help you implement the Grateful Day.
Okay, perfect. Because we didn't get to all five today. So they can get all five if they sign up.
Yes.
Perfect. Well, Peggy, I am truly thankful to you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Karen.
Thanks again for listening. Please follow us on Spotify if you're not already so you don't miss any future episodes. We'd also love for you to rate the show while you're there. Connect with us on social. Search Karen Coyne CFP on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. If you have feedback or if we can be of service in any way, please let us know. And now for the standard disclosures. Opinions expressed are those of Karen Coyne and not those of Raymond James Financial Services or Raymond James. Securities offered through Raymond James Financial Services Incorporated, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services offered through Raymond James Financial Services Advisors Incorporated. Clarity Planning is not a registered broker-dealer and is independent of Raymond James Financial Services. Karen Coyne Financial Advisors, located at 12920 Connemara Drive, Suite 202, Hagerstown, Maryland, 21742. Phone 301-739-7002. Any opinions expressed by Dr. Peggy DeLong are not necessarily those of Raymond James. Raymond James is not affiliated with nor endorses Dr. Peggy DeLong. This podcast is for informational purposes only.